Well, I was a secondary school teacher for 5 years, and in my, I suppose, 5th year teaching, the idea of serving, I had always planned to go out to Africa to work, maybe in a voluntary capacity, maybe as a teacher. And I suppose there was a time in my mid-20s I was considering, in my life, what path was I following? Was this what was meant for me? And I suppose I started praying a bit more as well. And as that unfolded, the idea of the possibility of priesthood came to mind. And I said to myself, well, could God be calling me? I thought of all the reasons why I couldn't be. I had a girlfriend at the time, I had a permanent job, I had a new car, and I also had the idea of what would my friends and my family think. So I said, these are all reasons that possibly could stop me, but I said they're not good enough reasons to say no to the Lord. And I suppose I took you could say, an insurance policy I took a leave of absence from my job for a year. I said, I'll try out this seminary thing. I spoke to priests at home about it, and it was arranged that I would meet with the bishop and consider this idea of a vocation. And I suppose when I made that kind of decision, I felt in my heart this was what God was asking of me. And that was in 1996. I entered the seminary in Maynooth and began the studies. And at the end of that first year, I wrote to the school saying that I was happy to let the job go, permanent job. And even in the midst of the scandals and all that was beginning to unfold in the church, I said, this is possible. The Lord is calling me to the priesthood. And I am going against the flow. It is countercultural and so on. But, the Lord has His own way of working. And, He doesn't use us because we're talented or brilliant. And I think it's ultimately because, if we allow the Lord to guide us, to be His hands and His feet, to be His mouth, and He works through ordinary human beings. And when I look in the scriptures, I see the fishermen of Galilee and a tax collector and, very ordinary people, and yet how Jesus called these to be His disciples, to be His apostles. And amazingly enough, 2,000 years later, the effects of those ordinary fishermen, those ordinary men, is still reverberating around the world. And in my heart I say, well, if Lord, if this is what your will is for me, I will try and do it to the best of my ability. I know that there's going to be challenges every day, but I think that's in every walk of life, whether we're married or single, young or old. And God is still calling young men to be priests, and I think, that He wants us to try, and a bit like Peter, he does say, cast out into the deep. It is a risk, it is at times a challenge, but I do think, with God all things are possible, and we need to just, I think, take a leap of faith at times. We may not walk on water, and we probably will sink more often than we will, but I think it is possible that God is calling many like myself in these times as well. So thank God I've no regrets, and hopefully I will be fit to, serve the Lord wherever I'm sent in the years ahead. Any young man that comes to me who is, considering going for the priesthood, I would wholeheartedly encourage him. I've said to other young men, I said that, just because you want to try out this idea of a vocation to the priesthood, it doesn't mean you're committing your life to the Lord. You're discerning, you're trying to test out, is this what God is asking of me? Is this the plan that I'm meant to have? Unfortunately, today, to go against, you're going against the culture, because the idea of commitment, the idea of maybe a lifelong commitment, is really countercultural. But we must remember that, it's not by ourselves, it is with the Lord, and the importance of the support, of people. We may not have support of family or friends, but we will have support from different means, different ways. And the Lord, is still calling young men today as much as He called 2,000 years ago. And also, I think the important thing is for young men to realize that if the Lord is calling you, He's a bigger picture than we can see. And if it's worth taking a risk, it's worth actually, a leap of faith, reaching out. And Pope John Paul said to, the young people down the age, he says, to be willing to take a risk for the Lord, to take a leap of faith. And I have no, hesitation in encouraging any young man, if that seed is there, maybe to speak to somebody you can trust, a spiritual director, or, maybe a family or member or friend that you think would help you to discern that call. So I would encourage people to take that risk. If the Lord is calling, He will open the doors that are required.